white evangelical Christian nationalist worst nightmare. Hey, welcome to Lanny Sense. I am so glad that you could join us tonight. It's going to be a very interesting show. It's going to be especially interesting if you could take the time to call in. I would really love to hear from you and talk with you about whatever subject you want to talk about. Of course, I imagine you'll want to talk about some of the things going on right now with the ascendancy of the Republicans and Trump and what's going on, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk a little bit about cannabis, and we'll talk a little bit about all kinds of things. So let's get started. First of all, I want to let you know that last week I gave out the wrong phone number, and I know several of you had emailed me saying that you had called in and the phone just rang and rang and rang and rang and no one answered. That's because I gave you the wrong phone number. But this week, there's two numbers you can call, either one if you'd like to call in, and I would love for you to call in. I really would love to talk with you. The two numbers are 909-383-1000. And the other number is very similar. It's 909-383-9000. So 909-383-1000, 909-383-9000. So give me a call, and we'd like to talk. You know, it's interesting is that one of the reasons that was given for why the Republicans did so well is that for the last two decades, they have really developed a media empire. It's not just Fox News and Newsmax, but they have all kinds of podcasts and people who are hosts and this kind of stuff that have developed an amazing following. And this is helped. Oh my goodness, what's going on here with my phone? This is how I get. I will find out if somebody's called. They let me know on my text messages in my phone, and it keeps turning off. So every now and then I have to go over there and turn it back on to see if somebody's giving me a call. So I hope that someone's going to be you. Give me a call, please. I'd love to talk with you. It'd make the show much more better than just me talking. But anyway, getting back to the right-wing media, and the problem is they're saying is that we don't have the clout on left wing. And, well, this show is kind of one of those little shows that is trying to help get this media out there. And in the next couple of years, we really need to develop this kind of clout as well. And this is how we reach people is through contact. And you know, you've probably been reading about how the legacy media, that's, you know, newspapers have been just dying on the vine because of the internet. You know, people now get their news from the internet. They don't pick up the idea that the paper gets thrown on your doorstep in the morning and you pick it up and you get your coffee and you sit back and you read the morning newspaper, or you read the evening newspaper when you get home. That's just not taking place. You know, here in Riverside, California, we have our newspaper called the Riverside Press Enterprise, and they used to have a big building. And I remember about 3 years ago, I went down to talk with someone there, and I went up to the second floor, third floor, and there must have been 100 desks in this newsroom, and only 4 of them were occupied. The paper has let go of so many of its reporters. It's just a skeleton crew now. And they're letting go of them because, well, they've lost so much advertising. You know, interesting enough, one of the big things that was a loss of advertising to newspapers, classified ads. Craigslist did them in because that's where they used to make so much money, the classifieds. You know, you used to pick up the classified section of the paper, and it was pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of real estate ads and used items for sale and car ads and all kinds of things in there. Well, now you pick up the newspaper, the classified ads, and they're just a couple pages. That's one of the biggest revenue losses for newspapers, and you can thank Craigslist for that. But have you checked out Craigslist recently? It's a disaster. Everybody has kind of learned how to manipulate it, and there's all kinds of. It's just very difficult to find anything easily. It's been replaced by Facebook Marketplace, But whatever, whether it's Facebook Marketplace to Craigslist, newspapers have lost one of their biggest sources of revenue was classified advertising. So anyway, and they're losing advertising also, the big print advertising, because there's just not as many people reading newspapers anymore. And I don't know what the number is. I think a third of all newspapers have closed, or maybe it's more than that. And there's going to be more closing and more closing. And part of the problem, of course, is that they have been bought up by hedge funds and by vanity people. The Washington Post was bought up by Jeff Bezos, of Amazon fame, and he bought the Washington Post, and because it was for sale, because it was not doing very well, and he bought it up and he infused some money in it. It's still going. But then there was this big thing that happened this year, because the Washington Post, like most newspapers, have always endorsed a presidential candidate. And this year, though, first the Los Angeles Times, which has been bought by a billionaire like Bezos, maybe not as rich as Bezos, but still worth billions of dollars. He bought the Los Angeles Times, and he informed them that the LA Times was not to endorse the presidential candidate this year. And Jeff Bezos did the same to for the Washington Post, and says, you're not going to endorse a candidate this year. And it's kind of interesting, because the candidates were Trump or Harris, and the Washington Post had written an editorial endorsing Harris, and Bezos told him to shelve it. And what's interesting here is that I don't know, Bezos, just because you're a billionaire doesn't mean you're not afraid of people out there. And, Bezos does lots of business with the federal government. They have this huge cloud computing thing, and they sell, millions, hundreds. I mean, I don't know how much they make from the government. They have a lot of business from the government, and they're afraid that if Trump comes in, if Trump was to win, that they would Trump is always threatening all kinds of reprisals and recriminations and all this kind of stuff, anybody who opposes him, and they would be afraid to lose his business. So they all told their newspapers, hey, we're not going to endorse anybody. We're going to play it safe. So just because you're a billionaire doesn't mean you can do anything you want. You still live in fear of certain people, and I guess Jeff Bezos lives in fear of Donald Trump. So anyway, so yeah, that's good. So anyhow, so it's been a chaotic situation. All the news, you pick up the news, it's all about Trump, and you don't see anything about Harris anymore. Of course, you don't see anything about Harris because she lost, and there's been all kinds of recriminations over why Harris lost. And before we get on to these other things, let's talk about a little bit about that. I'd be interested if you have some reasons why you thought Harris was lost and what she could do. So if you do have some ideas you'd like to talk with, 909-383-1000 or 909-383-9000. I kind of like to hear your feelings on why Harris lost and maybe what the Democrats should do to regain their thing about. So please give me a call. But anyway, there's been a lot of reasons, what they said. Of course, the number one reason was the economy. Harris came from the Biden administration, and the people, blamed that the inflation was due to the Biden administration. Well, yes and no. A lot of, the Inflation Reduction Act and the $2,000 $1,400 checks and all this kind of stuff. People suddenly had this money, and they came out of the and they had more money than there was a lot of goods out there. So prices started going up, and then there's a supply chain snafu because of COVID and this kind of stuff. Supply chains and materials were getting all held up, and that caused prices to go up. And so the Biden administration, because it happened during the Biden administration, they were blamed, and the people And the United States wasn't the only country to suffer inflation. Many other countries did too, and in a lot of these elections, the party that was in control of the country got kicked out in favor of the opposition party, which was claiming, well, they caused the inflation, and we're going to undo the problems of the inflation. Well, so that was a lot of people voted. Probably that was the number one reason. Then, of course, there is the migration issue that is plaguing this country. We've got all these people coming in from Mexico. Interestingly enough, most of these people are not Mexicans. They are now coming from Central American countries, Honduras and Guatemala and Nicaragua, Venezuela, which is South American, not Central American. They're coming into this country and in huge numbers, and people are panicking. And so they had to stem, they wanted, and they're afraid. I don't know what they're exactly afraid of, because, we have, 11 million, 20 million, I don't know how many immigrants in this country right now, and they're working, and they're paying money, they're paying taxes, they're paying Social Security into our Social Security system and our Medicare system, which is, in danger of closing down, and they're paying money into it, and they're never going to get anything out of it. And, if you're worried about Social Security, you might be even more worried with this mass deportation of all these people who have been throwing their earnings into the Social Security system and the Medicare system. If they stop throwing it in, where's the money going to come from to keep Social Security going? And that's one of the items that that's being talked about, is that if Trump undertakes this massive deportation, it's going to hasten the day which Social Security is going to be insolvent. And it's going to be insolvent because there's more money going out than money coming in, as fewer people are working and more people are retiring. My generation, the baby boomers, we're retiring, and we're going to need more health care through Medicare. And it's going to get, where's this money going to be coming from? Well, one of the places it could come from is from immigrants. So I'm not sure we should be afraid of immigrants, but people are scared of immigrants, and of course, and Harris, the Biden administration, was going to protect the Dreamers, and they wanted this, kept the asylum seekers and this kind of stuff, and they're being blamed for the immigration problem as well. That's it. But one of the reasons that is just recently they finally started talking about it in the last week or so. But I've been talking about it ever since the loss occurred. That was the Trump and the Republicans spent. Now this is an incredible figure. They spent almost $250 million. Not million, $250 million. That's close to $250 million advertising anti-trans ads. Now, trans is not in the top 10 issues that people really are concerned about, but it was like the biggest single expenditure just about that they made, anti-trans ads, worrying about, oh my gosh, if Harris gets elected, she was in favor of providing, gender-affirming care surgery and stuff to prisoners and immigrants and all this kind of stuff, which wasn't true. But she did say back then that people in prison should be given gender-affirming care, but that's health care. That's healthcare. You don't sit there and deny healthcare to somebody just because they're in prison. But anyway, so they were coming out and they were saying, oh my gosh, if Harris gets elected, there's going to be all these trans men on girls' teams. There's going to be trans men in women's bathrooms, and it's going to be, it's just going to be horrid. And they spent almost $250 million on that particular ad. And that was like 40% of their advertising budget or something. Anyway, and I think that might have, the race was really close. In all the states. We're talking 3 or 4 percentage points And could these anti-trans ads actually have done that with to scared enough people? And so, one of the things that the Democrats were really counting on was women's votes, and because of the Supreme Court, Trump added those 3 new votes to the Supreme Court, which resulted in the overturn of Roe versus Wade, the set precedent that had been there for 50 years. And everyone thought, oh, well, that's going to be there. And if you remember during the hearings in Congress for the new Supreme Court, they all said, the 3, Barrett and so on, said that, oh, they're going to recognize precedent and this kind of stuff. Well, they lied. They lied. And as soon as they got on the Supreme Court, they immediately voted to overturn Roe versus Wade. And they thought, and Democrats were really counting on this, motivating a lot of women, especially, to vote for Democrats. Well, it didn't really work out that way. It certainly did, but it didn't work out as good as the Democrats wanted to. One of the reasons is that a lot of women, mothers, might have read this advertising about trans men on girls' football teams and girls' teams and this kind of stuff, and said, I don't want my daughter having to, a trans man, and I don't want a trans man going into the girls' restrooms. But what's interesting is the real impact might have been on men. Now, one of the things that was kept being talked about was that African American men and Latino men were a large number of them, significant number, were going to vote for Trump. These were people that normally voted Democratic, and suddenly now they're voting for Trump. Now, could it be the economy? Could it be immigration? I wondered about the Latino men really about immigration, but they were moving to Trump. And I can't help but thinking that maybe part of the reason had to do with all these ads that were being bombarded by trans people. And men are very, very, conscious of their sexuality and their masculinity and this kind of stuff. And as I mentioned the other week in the show, that I talked about the X chromosomes and the Y chromosomes, and I got an interesting email from somebody asking me about that. And I want to clarify, because there's a little confusion. Women have 2 X chromosomes. Men have an X and a Y chromosome. And we got and so consequently, women it's the man who has the X and the Y chromosome. So the woman always gives an X chromosome to the baby, to the fetus. But the man either gives an X or a Y, and that's the sex chromosome. So what's interesting is that women have 2 X chromosomes, men have an X and a Y. So women have no what you might call a masculinity chromosome, but men do. They have a Y chromosome, the masculine, and they have an X chromosome. So they have a feminine chromosome in there too. So I think that because men have this X chromosome, we have a feminine side more so than women have a masculine side. So we're in touch with our feminine side. And so when they talk about gay men, and they talk about trans people, maybe this is a little threatening to men because they can feel it. They can feel it. I don't know if women have the same sense of feeling masculinity as men have the sense of feeling femininity, because they have an X chromosome and women do not have a Y chromosome. And so when all these ads started bombarding the media about trans people, maybe a number of these Latin men and Hispanic men especially, and white men too, for sure, said, I can't have that. I'm going to vote for the man who is not supportive of trans people, and I'm going to vote for Trump. I have no idea. But listen, hey, I am so pleased we have a caller on the line, and we're going to bring Linda on the line. Linda, welcome to Lanny Sense. We're so glad to have you call in. Hello? I don't hear Linda. Ed, Eric? Eric's our engineer. What's going on, Linda? You told me Linda's on the line. Well, I don't know what's happening here. Um, uh, well, anyway, I guess Linda isn't on the line, or Eric can't get Linda onto the show, or something. Hopefully, he's working on it, and we're going to get Linda on the line. I'd love to. I think we'll find what Linda has to say to be of interest. Anyway. So we're getting back to what happened with the election. So that's why that whether that is the reason why there's it's multitude of reasons why Harris didn't win. One of the reasons they're putting out there is that she didn't have much time to run. She only had like 3.5 months to run, and Trump has been running for this election for 8 years, and so that was and the problem is they're blaming Biden now, that Biden caused this problem because he didn't. When he ran in 2020, he was going to be a one-term president. He was going to be the bridge to the future. He actually talked about it. But then, once you get that taste of power, President of the United States is a very powerful man. You don't want to let it go. As Henry Kissinger said, power is the most effective aphrodisiac. And so I guess Biden at 81 years old loved that aphrodisiac and didn't want to give it up. And if he had given it up, if he had said, I'm going to just serve one term and then get out, the Democrats would have had the primaries. They would have had Harris and Gavin Newsom and other governors and all these people running. It would have been a very exciting primary, and people would have been paying attention to all these candidates, and they would have been viable candidates running for office. And it would have been, and they would have had all this time to build up their rapport, you might say, with the voting public. But they didn't have that because because they didn't have the chance, because Biden was going to run, and Biden pretty well locked up the nomination for the president, for the Democratic nominee for president, until that disastrous debate with Trump, and which was it's got to be one of the worst debate performances I have ever seen. I've watched almost every single presidential debate since the very first one between JFK and Nixon. And this one's got to be the bad. It's interesting. These dates really are important. One of the reasons they say that JFK won that election over Nixon was because of the debate. It was an interesting story. If you don't know about it, Nixon was a man. And so when they offered to put, makeup on him for the television, he said, "Oh, no, men don't wear makeup." Well, Kennedy, he's a man, but he wore makeup. So he looked really good on television, and Nixon looked like a ghost. And it was just really bad, because the television debates turned out to be very, very important. A lot of people believe that the reason Kennedy won was because of Nixon's poor performance in the debate and how he is licking it. Now, I just got a text from Eric that Linda is coming in clear now. So let's see if we can actually get Linda on the show. Linda, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yay!
Oh, good.
Thank you, Eric.
No
Good
problem,
news.
guys.
Okay, well, this is
static.
KCA is in a new studio in San Bernardino, and I think they're still having a few things, getting their wires crossed and this kind of stuff. So
Okay.
we have to understand and work with it. Linda, welcome to the show. We're so pleased to have you.
Lanny,
Yes.
I'm getting static.
Oh, you're getting
using
static.
The 383-9000 number. I'm
Well, you're-
also on hold on the 1000.
Well, we can hear you very good. We hear you very good. So what is it you wanted to talk about? Well, we are having some problems here. We are still trying to work this out. Eric, if Linda comes back on, please let
Linda,
me know.
are you back on, caller?
Hey, I can come on 9,000.
Okay, come on tonight. So anybody else who wants to call in on the 38909-383-9000 number. That's working for Linda. Okay, Linda, what is on your mind?
Okay. I've noticed that we are spending a great deal of time, we liberals, going through everything, trying to figure out what it is that went wrong. And a lot of what we're doing is pointing the finger at the media, which needs a lot of finger pointing. And but I think the best thing we can do, especially someone in your position, is to try to recruit the people who were on the fence, the people who are asking if their votes could be changed, the people who sat on their butt because they didn't know who to vote for, and also I think the people who couldn't make up their mind between Trump and Kamala. That to me is a complete mystery and needs to be understood by us so we know how to approach them. What's missing in our message that they're not satisfied by what we have to offer?
Well,
and the only way that can be done is through a radio show like yours or a TV show or whatever, not a blog, but a podcast.
You're absolutely right. One of the things that I've been seeing on other podcasts and some of these is that they feel that the Republicans, like I said earlier in the show, have dominated this media, and they just have a better job of reaching out to people. How many people get their news from Fox News? And Fox News, it's interesting, in the defamation suit that was that voting that company, what was it called, that has the voting machines and stuff, they sued them and they won $750 million in a defamation suit from Fox News. During the trial, Fox News admitted, we're not a news organization, we're entertainment. We don't provide news, we provide entertainment. And that's what a lot of people are getting their stuff, and they're not getting the right information. And the Democrats have not did a good job of countering all this misinformation that's being put out there.
Yeah. I still think it would be a good idea if people who doubted Kamala Harris or whatever message we had, if they called in and said what it was that was a turnoff, because we need to know at least for the next 2 years, if we get a chance to vote again for the primaries, we need to know what they need to hear.
You're absolutely right. I love what you says. If we get a chance to vote again, isn't that just it's amazing that people we are actually considering with Trump coming in there that maybe we won't be able to vote in 2026 or 2028, that they will usurp the vote. This is very scary.
Yeah, we really messed up this time by not getting out there. I don't know why we didn't get out there, because it appeared to me that Kamala Harris was reaching out very well. Her campaign, in my mind, was phenomenal. I don't think Hillary came close to doing what she did.
No, well, if Hillary had done what Harris did, she would have won. One of the reasons they say that she didn't win is because she ignored the swing states. She didn't go to Michigan. She didn't go to Wisconsin, and she lost those important swing states. If she had gone to Michigan and she had gone to Wisconsin, she probably would have won the election. Because it was that close.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
which is the just bad misstep. The Democrats are really good at that. If you go back to 2000 when Gore ran against Bush, and the election came down to 500 some odd votes in Florida, and the hanging chads and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it could have been totally different. And here's what I've talked about with some people is that who is the major villain of this whole piece, and it is the author of Unsafe at Any Speed. Oh no! Why have I lost his name? Just flew out of my head all of a sudden.
I'll look it up.
What was that?
I'll look it up.
Oh, I can't believe I can think of his name. I can think of the book he wrote, Unsafe at Any Speed. Look it up real quick. Unsafe at Any Speed author. Let me see.
Ralph Nader. Ralph
Nader, exactly. I don't know. And I'm not even stoned. But anyway, Ralph Nader was running on the Green Party, and he got like 93,000 votes. And those people in the Green Party would not have voted for George Bush. They would have voted for Al Gore. And because he was running, he lost.
I have a comment.
He took the votes from Gore, and the Senate went to this rigged Supreme Court, which along a party line vote on the Supreme Court said, well, we're not going to let them count all the votes. George Bush is president.
So I have a comment with regard to that.
Yes.
I believe the Democratic Party is very eager to stay centrist, and they believe that if they stay centrist, they will continue to have a strong following. But it's always been at the expense of ignoring the value of the far left. I mean, when Bernie was running, he actually won California, and he was responsible for people registering to vote Democrat. He got a lot of people voting Democrat, and not bringing them to the table, having their voice heard within the Democratic Party, I think is a big mistake. We don't need to follow everything they say, but we got to include them because they are a part of the Democratic Party. And if we don't listen to them, then they're going to vote third party, and we're going to lose their vote. We don't get the right wing voting third party.
Linda, you hit the nail on the head, because when Bernie Sanders does listen to them, and in the 2016 election, he was saying the same, seeing the same problems, seeing the same things that Trump was saying. Only he had different solutions to how to solve these problems. And if he was running on the ticket instead of Clinton, he would have reached out to those people and he would have said, hey, listen, Trump's solution is not going to work for you. These are the solutions that work for you. And I think if Sanders had been on the ticket instead of Clinton in 2016, we would have won the election, because he was saying the same thing as Trump was, but offering different solutions to the problems.
Yeah, he wasn't the traditional politician type that Trump attracts. And a lot of people who wanted Bernie ended up voting for Trump, not understanding the difference. Just because they both come out sounding less political. When you sound like a politician, it's a turnoff. And and I think that might have been Kamala's mistake, because she's quite good at that. But it's not her as much as the campaign managers that need to
Yeah, yeah. We
down.
sometimes you got to listen to your heart and not your head, and go from there. Say, Linda, I want to
Right.
thank you for calling in. We've got another caller on the line. I'd like to bring them
Great.
on as well. So,
Okay.
thanks,
Thank
Linda. We'll
you.
talk to you later. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh, we have another caller on the line, Alfie. Alfie, welcome to Lanny Sense. We are so pleased to have you call in.
Hey, Lanny, what's going on?
Oh no, are we having
Can
the
you hear me?
same problem with Alfie we had with Linda?
Yeah. Is that better?
Oh yes, we can hear you. Great. How you doing?
There. I'm great now. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I am so pleased to hear you, Alfie. Alfie dates way back in my history to my clubs in Portland, Oregon. I used to run these gay and lesbian under all age nightclubs, and Alfie was you came out at my clubs, didn't you?
I sure did. 15 years old, I walked through those doors and I said, I'm home finally.
And you've never stopped coming out ever since.
Yeah, at the club, I think I was known as the man with the four-way hips.
Yeah, yeah. So, what brings you? What's on your mind that you would like to speak about?
Well, you guys are talking about the election, and one thing I don't hear anybody talking about is, his running mate, Vance. It sounds like he had the tech people in his back pocket, and nobody's really talking about these algorithms, right? And how can a guy that did everything that Trump did and still get elected? I personally think it's the algorithms, and I think they've been pushing Trump for quite a few years now.
Well, you hit something there very important, because a lot of it's social media, and supposedly Twitter, which was bought by for 42 billion, bought by Musk, was definitely slanted towards Trump, and that certainly made a big difference. You're absolutely right. The algorithms in Facebook, on Twitter, were slanted in such a way that Trump got favorable publicity.
And another thing I don't hear anybody talking about is, have we ever had an ex-president that has beat up and lied about a current president daily for 4 years and then ran against him again? Because when you are an ex-president, a lot of weight comes with what you say. And there was no way that he could have won with that anyway. There's no way. And, hindsight, of course, is 2020. But, really what they should have done is, 6 months before, he should have just said he wasn't going to run, and then let them have a free-for-all at the convention, like James Carville said, and it would have been great publicity. People would have got very interested in it and got more involved in it.
That's right. We talked about that a little bit before, about the fact that Biden was supposed to be just a one-term president. He said, "I'm a bridge to the future," but he didn't.
Forgot.
He wasn't a bridge. He wanted to keep the power, and he wanted to run again. You're so right there. That was a fatal mistake. Really was.
And you have all the people around him wanting him to run again because, of course, they're part of that system. They want to keep their job.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, they wanted. If Biden got reelected, they would keep their job. If Biden didn't get reelected, they wouldn't get. And if another Democrat was running instead of Biden, they might, they'll bring in their own people, not Biden's people. That's what happens when you bring in a new person. You're right there. You're absolutely right. That was one of the major faux pas that happened. And there's a lot of major faux pas, but I agree with you.
Yeah.
That was certainly one of the major ones, biggest ones.
Yeah, of course, it's been changed elections all around the world, because of inflation. And, really, they do have quite a few stars, I think, that, could have stepped up and would have stepped up. And, and then they wouldn't have had all the baggage with them. I mean, I loved Kamala. I was rooting for her all the way. But she had the baggage from Biden. And it wasn't really baggage. It was baggage that was created and lied to and propagated by Trump for 4 years while he was in office.
Yeah.
he just beat the hell out of him, and you beat the hell out of somebody for that long, and you lie that many times, people are going to start believing it, and then spreading the word themselves.
And as Trump was one lie after another, lie. You know, when he was in office, the Washington Post kept a track of his lies, and he lied over 3,000 times. And there's that old the quote that was, you know, Joseph Mengele, from the Nazis, said, you know, the big lie, you tell a lie often enough, and people begin to believe it. And that's what Trump was doing. He just told one lie after another, lie, and he said it so often that people just believed it, even though it wasn't true.
Yeah, we've never had a situation like this before. You know?
Well, we've never had a president run who's a felon, too, with 32 felony counts against them. We are really in uncharted waters.
I am so scared of what the future is holding for this country. I really am, Lanny. You know, well, I just hope we make it through it.
Well, you know, we're gay. You and I are gay, and I think gay people have a lot to fear because, you know, remember, the Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas wrote after they overturned the Roe versus Wade that the next thing in their sight should be the Ferguson decision, I guess, in which same-sex marriage was made legal. That's, you know, Roe versus Wade had 50 years of precedent, and they overturned it. The same sex has only been around 10 years, and you know, who knows? I'm sure that the Heritage Foundation is ginning up all kinds of court cases that are going to wind up before the Supreme Court. And even though in the Roe versus Wade, overturning the Dobbs decision, which overturned Roe versus Wade, they wrote, "Oh, this decision should not be made to reflect on, you know, on other things." That's bullshit. It really is. They lie. These new Supreme Court justices, they lied to Congress when they were being questioned, and they'll lie to the public in their decisions as well. I think we're in big trouble.
Precedent. It's unbelievable that they can do that. Somebody having a right, the women having that right for 50 years, and then taking it away from them. It's unfathomable. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah,
but it's true, and it has happened, and it's where we're at.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Well, that's why we have, we can't give up. We can, I really think that, with the tariff thing there and the immigration, mass deportation and the other things that Trump is planning, I think it's going to blow up in their faces. And it'll be interesting to see what happens about a year from now. And I think it's very possible that people be, remember in 2004, Bush won re-election, and he got both houses of Congress, just like Trump did. And 2 years later, everything went so wrong that the Democrats took over control of Congress in 2006. And I think the same thing may very well happen in 2026. But we have to not let our guards down. We got to keep fighting. We got to come up with new ideas, and we got to come up with our own programs to counter. When things start going wrong for Trump, we've got to show how we can make things right.
Absolutely. And before when the Democrats took back over, there was a democracy to take back over. There might not be a democracy to take back over.
That's the trouble. That's what I was talking with Linda beforehand, that they may just suspend the elections in 2026, so we couldn't kick them out if we wanted to.
Think of the damage he did over the last 4 years to Biden and for all the lies and everything that he said. Imagine what he can do in the next 4 years. He wants to put all these people in there that have a good presence on TV. There's a reason for that. Yeah. And so it's going to be like the manure spreader on the farm that I was raised on in Ridgeville, Washington, And
Ridgeville, Washington. I didn't know you came from a small town in Washington State.
We have on a little dairy farm there.
Yeah.
I said, Mom, I don't want to touch an udder. She goes, don't worry, honey, you don't have to.
Well, Alfie, I want to thank you for calling in. We've got another person here on the line who wants to have a few minutes. We only have a few minutes left, so thank you for calling in, Alfie. Hey, Wednesdays we got to get together. We haven't had a long heart-to-heart sit-down chat in a long time. We got to do that.
We will. Absolutely.
Okay.
You'll
Take
do that.
care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lanny. Bye.
Okay, and we now have here in the studios, and he's actually come in on our Skype link, Sam Clowder. Hey, Sam, welcome to Lanny Sense. We're so glad to have you here again. You were last week. We're so glad to have you back again. What's going on this week?
This week, I wasn't prepared to answer that question. What's going on is I've decided to leave the U.S.
Yes, I saw a post on Facebook that because you had announced on Facebook that you were going to leave, you're going to go to Latin America, and Marcia responded, "Good. Let us know where you're going because we're going to follow a lot
Ecuador.
of people." Ecuador. You're thinking of Ecuador now, right?
Ecuador.
Why Ecuador?
Ecuador is a very unique place. You know, I've been listening and thinking about this. There's a lot of things in our Constitution that are archaic, okay? One of them was, back in the day when the Constitution was written, a trial was done in weeks. Our law and order system failed because they let Trump get by the last 4 years without executing things like it's because lawyers make money delaying. So the longer they can delay, the more billable hours they have. And that's all comes down to money. Our Constitution says bear arms. Bear arms is in self-defense. It doesn't mean AK-47s. It was a musket or a single-shot pistol.
And it was a well-regulated militia. So well-regulated militia came before the right to the right to bear arms. So the militia is the defining factor, and it means that if you're in the militia, you have the right to bear arms. But if you're not in the militia, you don't have that right.
Well, one of the big things to me about Ecuador is that its constitution gives the same rights to plants and animals that it gives to people. Now, think
Really?
about it. Yes.
Explain that, please.
It's the right to life, the right to live. I mean, if you kill a monkey, it's like killing a human being.
Oh, what about if you kill a cow?
If you
For dinner.
kill a cow, it's like killing a human being.
Really?
Well, actually, I think it's wild animals. It's
Wild animals,
than
not domesticated. Okay,
No.
fair enough.
No, and wild plants. So I mean, like if you kill a venomous snake, it better be in self-defense, or you get prosecuted.
Really interesting. That is fascinating.
Their currency is the U.S. dollar. They switched to the U.S. dollar in 2000 to stabilize their economy, so you never have to change money. They're on the equator, which means that 365 days a year, the sun rises at 6:30 and sets at 6:30. Okay, there's none of these long periods of darkness or long periods of daylight.
And there's no long periods of cold either.
No. The beaches range from a low of 65 to a high of 85.
Really?
Yes.
Perfect.
And the mountains range from a low of about 55 to a high of about 90. And that's all year long. Now, they are suffering a drought like many other places because of global warming.
Yeah.
But they do a pretty damn good job of maintaining the Galapagos Islands, which is part of Ecuador.
That's right.
And they have 16 million people. 10% of them are expats. I'm finally getting the idea of what that word expat means. I am an expatriate. Mm-hmm. I am no longer a patriot. And when I go to another country, that's why they shorten it by calling them expats.
Yeah.
1.5 million Americans have moved to Ecuador in basically the past 10 years.
Really? 1.5 million?
So 10% of the population, there's 16 million in the country, and 1.5 million, 1,500,000 are English-speaking expatriates.
And I imagine most of these are probably retired people.
Yes.
And they're getting and all their Social Security money is going to Ecuador and helping the Ecuadorian economy and not our economy. That's
well,
interesting.
yes, but now here's the thing. Ecuador has a special retirement visa where all you have to have is an income of $800 a month to get a residence, permanent residence as a retirement visa, kind of like a green card in the United States. But here's the situation. I'm in what's called a luxurious one-bedroom apartment in Hollywood, 720 square feet. Small, but comfortable, with all the amenities. There's a underground parking, there's a pool, sauna, hot tub, gym, laundry, $2,450 a month. In Ecuador, in Quito or Guayaquil, I could get the same thing for about $600 a month.
Wow.
I can rent a up to 3-bedroom furnished apartment for about $450 a month. Now that includes all utilities.
Ah. Well, and I imagine I bet the cost of food there is less than the United States too.
That's a little tricky. That's a little tricky because they don't have the processed foods we have. And the processed foods can be expensive. Like a jar of peanut butter can be $27.
Well, RFK
But
Jr.
you can get all the fresh food you want at a market. Much cheaper. Yeah, much cheaper.
RFK Jr. would like that because he's very much against ultra processed foods, and he should be. Ultra processed foods are not good for us. They really are not
Gasoline, it's what America snorts at as a socialist country, but that means the government cares about who the people are.
Yeah.
So they have two kinds of gas, regular unleaded and supreme unleaded. Regular unleaded is what they call the government subsidizes it. So a super unleaded is about the same price as it is here. It's about $4.25 a gallon. Regular unleaded is $2.20 a gallon at every gas station throughout their country, exactly the same price.
Well, that makes traveling a little bit. Listen, Sam.
They have a public transportation system, which I consider Uber and taxis public transportation. But it's like about $1 will get you 5 miles.
Wow. Okay. Sam, listen, we've got to have you come back and talk about where you're looking about with the suggestions where people can move to the United States if it really gets bad here, which it might. But we're running out of time, so I'm going to have to end it.
You texted me before the show, but I was busy at the time. I didn't see it until just minutes ago.
Okay.
If you want me to come back, just text me.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. Thank you so much, Sam. Man,
hey, I saw 3 great films, but if you want me on next year, next week I'll tell you. I saw Red One today. It is so much fun. And do not
Sam, we got to go. We got only 30 seconds left. I want to let you know next week. Paul Stanford from Oregon and THF Medical Clinics will be on. We haven't done a show on cannabis in ages. We're going to look at the newest research on cannabis, including the newest research that shows that people who use cannabis have a lower cognitive decline than people who don't have cannabis. So until next week, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Alfie. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Linda, for calling in. This is Lanny Sense. KCA is a station that leaves no listener behind. Lanny Sense is the show that leaves no gender behind. Good night.